Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope they're great. The other day, I made soup beans. I was talking to M's family a while back, and one of her uncles said, "Do you like soup beans?" And my answer was, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, I love them." And then I got to thinking, like, I haven't had soup beans in a very long time, and it's also something that I've never personally made. Um, I eat a lot of beans, but I haven't made soup beans before. And so I started thinking about it uh, since he asked the question, and I've been wanting them for a while. So I decided to make them. I went and bought some beans, and you know, made a pot of soup beans. And in the process of trying to decide what kind of bean I should pick, I like Great Northern beans, but I didn't quite know what my grandfather used to eat because honestly, I ate them mostly at his house. My mom said he liked pinto beans, so I bought pinto beans and I made soup beans. But in doing research, all of these food posts that I found about soup beans said that it's pretty much a regional Appalachian food. And I just found that kind of hard to believe, right? Like, it's basically just slow cooked beans. Surely other people do that. And I asked on Twitter, like, do you have soup beans? And some people said no, and some people said yeah, but we call it something different. And that's what I expected, right? To say that soup beans are a regionally locked food is really bizarre to me. It's a huge staple food. Well, it was a huge staple food here for a long time. In fact, talking to my mom, she's told me her whole life, or my whole life, that they didn't have meat at her house except for Sundays. They would have like pork chops or hot dogs on Sundays, but every other day of the week they didn't have meat. So they always had vegetables and beans every night. Beans and veggies, beans and veggies. That was it. That's all they ate. And I think that's a pretty common Appalachian diet, 100 years ago, because it's rich in protein and it's stupid cheap, just completely cheap. And so she ate beans all of the time growing up, which means my dad did not. My dad ate meat every day. So when they came together, she would make beans occasionally, but it wasn't super, super, super common. And when she did, she would normally make like navy beans or Great Northern beans, which are the two that I really like, or lima beans. She made a lot of lima beans as a side dish. We never really had it as a meal. And that's truthfully what soup beans is. Soup beans is a meal. And if you don't know what the basics is soak beans for 12 hours, rinse them, put them in a pot, put in a ham hock, usually. I used bacon because I don't happen to have a ham hock. Bacon or ham, bacon fat. Some people don't put the actual bones and meat in, they just use bacon fat. Some garlic, some onion. Let it cook for ever, hours, all day. Just let it simmer all day. I did mine in the slow cooker. I let them go for about 10 hours. And what comes out is the beans are like on the verge of crumbling, and the water has thickened and turned into a sort of a soup. And that's why it's called soup beans. It's not a particular type of bean. You can make soup beans out of just about anything. But pinto beans were probably the most common, and that's what my grandfather always ate. I can remember seeing him sit with a bowl of beans and 2 pieces of white bread with butter on them, and that was his favorite thing in the world to eat. And I was just curious, like, did you grow up with beans as a regular, like, that's your main course, just having beans? Or is that, maybe that's the part that's kind of strictly Appalachian. I saw a lot of international people, especially like French and Italian people on my Twitter post, say that they have like the Italians make beans and pasta. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious to know what the extent of slow cooking beans into a soup. It really is a soup. It's not, you don't just strain the beans, it's the juice and all. It's a soup that's made out of beans. And I'm just curious to know if that's something that you're familiar with. Because growing up, like, like I said, my mom would make them occasionally, but if I went to my grandfather's house, it was pretty much guaranteed we were going to have soup beans. I've eaten hundreds of servings of soup beans, and I've always loved them. And to me, it was just a normal thing. I didn't know that it was supposedly this kind of Appalachian regional food. Curious to know, do you have some sort of low and slow cooked bean dish? If you do, tell me about it in the comments below, because I might research how to make them, because I really do enjoy beans. There was a time when the family moved out, before Em started hanging out and I started cooking for her, I ate beans and rice pretty much every day. But I've always been a open the can, heat them up, beans and rice kind of guy. So I love beans, always have. I just don't get to eat them very often because I have gastrointestinal issues when I eat them, as most do. So I try not to have them too frequently. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Do you have soup beans? What are they like where you're from? Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking and commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is eidolon. It is a noun meaning a phantom or apparition, or the image of an ideal. By a root obscure and lonely, haunted by ill angels only, where an eidolon named Night on a black throne reigns upright. Edgar Allan Poe, an American author and poet. Eidolon. E-I-D-O-L-O-N. I have never heard of a ghost called an eidolon, but I really like that, and I might use that in my book. I was calling them wraiths, and I don't like the word wraith. I think wraith is too fantasy.